are able to perceive energy, like our ability to perceive energy becomes stronger. And then also what causes, another thing that causes such sensitivity is the activation of our light body, which happens when we release ourselves from old emotions, things, people, and habits that kept us attached to the material world. So some, like, I have two personal examples of sensitivity within myself, which involves food and the things that I watch. So with food, the things that I used to love eating before I really became tapped into myself, like I can't even tolerate it no more. It's like McDonald's or just any fast food, and even like bacon. Like I used to like to eat bacon. The smell of it itself, just I cannot. Or TV shows. I used to like to watch a lot of violent shows, like the stabbing, the shootings, and I was even around like um some schoolmates a couple months back, and we were watching something, and like I would literally shriek and look away. Whereas before I could sit down and watch that because I was desensitized. So basically, if more people were able to feel the exchange that happens or that goes on after you have sex with somebody, this hookup culture would be dead. All this hookup culture that they promote, like that they promote, it would just be like done with. And when one connects with themselves or when one connects with someone through sex, you're essentially merging your energy or becoming one with that person. We're taking on each other's psyche, DNA, energy, how we feel about ourselves. So it's important for us to choose wisely on who we merge our energies with. And this could be done when we slow down and get to know the person. So ask them questions. Because one thing about it is people like to talk. People like to talk about themselves. So just ask them questions, sit back and observe to see if how they think, their mindset or their routines, if their habits align with who you are as a person. So like let's say now, speaking personally, I know that I'm the type of person when I get up, I like to stretch and meditate and I'm really into like my spirituality. So it wouldn't make sense for me to go be with somebody who I know when they wake up, the first thing that they do is go through their phone or they're on Instagram or like not to judge or anything, but that's just not aligned with my character. So I can't just go and just merge our energy, with just anybody. Basically, if you wouldn't want to be that person, don't go and have sex with them because essentially you're becoming one with that person. And I think as a collective, it's important for us that we stop letting lust win. And I actually remember Derek, he's in the call, he made a video on his YouTube talking about lust and how it can rob us and leave us feeling empty after we feed into it. And that makes sense because if you see in the next slide with the consciousness, the map of consciousness, um basically lust is essentially desire. So it's ego based, it's insatiable. And that isn't to say that it's a bad thing because if you're hungry, you're desiring food. So our ego needs it to survive. We need to be hungry in order to survive. Or if you want to have sex, that's basically our body's way of surviving and continuing on the blood our bloodline because you can create, babies from that. So next on the next page. So basically, like with the whole speaking on Derek's video about how lust can rob us. I was basically also talking about my TikTok on how when you have sex with somebody, you're sharing or like the exchange of like your personal finances merge with each other. So if you're engaging with somebody who doesn't have a lot of finances, they're passing on that energy to you. Um, an example of this is like I don't know if you guys are into hip hop, but the Baby made a song called Bob, and he mentioned this rich ND, it ain't free. So he's basically saying that he knows his value enough to not just be going out here and sleeping with anyone because he knows that he is passing on that energy. And it's said in many songs. Lola Brooke, I ain't giving out no 90 to know just for fun. Are you dumb? Like I feel like a lot of celebrities are spiritually tapped in, and even Kevin Gates, like he speaks on this a lot, and he even mentioned it in an interview with Carisha, and I'm glad that he did because I like how he uses his influence to spread such spiritual wisdom to the masses. So on the next page, this chart kind of shows you what I'm saying in a sense. This is an astrology chart where it shows you the 12 houses. So if you look at the number 8, can you zoom in if they could see it better? I don't know if it allows you to do that. But basically
Nah,
the
unfortunately, it doesn't.
Okay. The eighth house in astrology deals with things related to matters related to sex, transformation, psychology, death, rebirth, shared resources, and all things that are considered dark and taboo, such as the occult, religion, spirituality. So each sign in astrology has a sister sign or a sign that is polar opposite to it. So as the eighth house is ruled by Scorpio, because I don't know if you guys ever heard about like Scorpios being really sexual, or it's like they're related to like the genitals and stuff like that. So as the eighth house is ruled by Scorpio, the polar opposite of Scorpio is Taurus. So Taurus rules the second house in the chart, which deals with matters related to money, material possessions, values, skills, assets, etc. So notice how I said material possessions in terms of Taurus in the second house, whereas the opposing sign, Scorpio, deals with hidden possessions such as your psyche. People can't see what you're thinking, but that's something that you possess within you. So bringing it back to my original topic, as we're merging, or as one is merging with another individual, it can be shown in a chart, even too, because like the first house deals with the self, which deal like the first house is ruled by Aries. So think of the stereotype of Aries being selfish. First house is dealing with the self. So the opposite, every sign has a polar opposite. The opposite of Aries is Libra. Libra is how you relate to one another. So the seventh house deals with your relationships with one another. So when you go and merge your energy with somebody, you're now going up to that eighth house energy where you have shared resources with one another. So example, like you can marry into a rich family and acquire their assets and their resources. Or you could partner up, date, collaborate, start a project with somebody, and you could see, the dark side, Scorpio energy, dark side of it in terms of like they may not be who they presented themselves to be. So like you see all like their secrets, what's in the closet, what's hidden. So just touching on all of this, like to my ladies especially, or anyone who identifies with being in their feminine energy dominantly, we are assessed especially susceptible because feminine energy receives, whereas the masculine energy gives. So it's important that we choose our partners wisely. Because a personal example, I didn't even speak on my personal example. A personal example that I had to go through in order for me to speak on this was on one of the last guys that I engaged with. Context. Basically, like before I had engaged with him, I was celibate for 10 months. So in those 10 months, like I was really working on myself heavy, hyper, when they say like them self-help junkies, like I was just really in my own zone. I was going to the gym, business was booming, life was great. I was just really like purging a lot. And then as I got engaged with him, I just fell off with everything. Like I mentioned in one of my the last calls about how, like let's say with chakras, it's important that you're stable within your foundation, because anything outside of you, if your foundation isn't stable, will knock you off. So that was a situation that really knocked me off my throne. Like I stopped going to the gym, money slowed down. I used to be a lash tech, so it slowed down to 2 clients within a month. You know how much money that is? $230 in a month. Them TikToks when it's like, the fuck I'm gonna do with 200? Really? Like, whereas a bad month for me before that was 10 clients. So I knew, because I wasn't doing anything, I was on my game, that was what caused that to happen. I was really drained, tired. It just sucked the life out of me. It was a very bad experience that I had to go through because I'm stubborn and hard-headed. So that's something like pain is strength in disguise, essentially. So like it taught me a very valuable lesson on how important it is for me to value myself and not just give myself away to anybody, because that lust robbed me and I had to build myself up, and I'm finally at a place now that I like feel better within myself. So if we scroll down to the 6th page, it basically, I'm saying where if there's anybody who wants to free themselves from any past sexual energies that they experience, these are just a few ways that you can. So stretches for the hips and pelvic floor. And this region of our body is related to the sacral chakra, and where we store old emotions and traumas. And it's even connected to our throat chakra because the two are linked. So because they're both avenues of creativity and expression. So if there's tension in your lower region, there's likely tension in your upper region. You're probably like clenching your teeth a lot, or maybe possible tension in the shoulders. Another thing that we can do is spiritual baths. So connecting with all four elements. So maybe adding some herbs to the water, setting some candles around the place for the fire element, placing crystals for the earth element, listening to Hertz music. I've seen this from Derek's video. That's why I'm saying it on one of his TikToks, and listening to Hertz for the air element. And it's important to set the intention. Andre, I don't know if he's in one of the calls, but he mentioned that like setting the intention charges basically what you're trying to do. So set the intention to wash over your body, your energetic body, of any energies that are not yours. You could even look some up on Pinterest on like things that you can say to release yourself from it, and of course to the harm of none. Another thing is cord cutting through like a fire ritual. I actually did that this past full moon. So like you take the two candles, one representing you and one representing another person, wrap some string around it, and then there was like this, you could look it up on Pinterest really, basically of what to say. But I also just like kind of meditated on the experience. So like how did they make me feel? What energy do I think I give to them, and what do they give to me, and things like that. And light the candle, watch the flames burn, and know that, or trust that the cord is separated between y'all. Another thing we can do is writing, speaking, or meditating on the experience, basically what I was saying. How it made you feel? What energy do you believe you gave out? And what energy do you believe you received from the exchange? And how would you like to feel after you release them? So do you want to feel more free? Do you want to feel more energetic? I know I wanted to feel more energetic so that I can move towards my goals faster without feeling weighed down to something else. And lastly, connecting with our wounds for my ladies. So like acknowledging it, because where your attention goes, energy flows. So like when you acknowledge your womb space, you're sending life, you're sending blood flow to that area. Massages, meditations. You could do meditations where you can actually visualize and see what your womb space looks like to you. Yoni steams, where you get like, let's say like a bowl of hot water, and you put some herbs in it, some herbs that you want to heal your vaginal like walls, and you like sit over it and let the steam soak up, and it like it's really beneficial for you. Or yoni eggs. But if there's anybody who has any questions on what I've spoken on, the chat is open to that. Or if you guys just want to speak those questions. If not, I can just pass over the call. Yes, just curious. When your energy went down and depleted after your exchange, did he level up? Okay, one thing that I did notice was before he was not going to the gym. After, it was that one time after he started going to the gym. He was actually consistent for a year. Like, I don't know now, I'm not really checking up on him, but like for months he was consistent.
Can y'all hear me? If y'all can hear me, drop a 111 in the chat. If y'all can hear me, drop a 111 in the chat. Okay, bet. I don't know what happened to Tiffany. But I'm gonna let Sage go ahead and take over from here. And if you guys have any type of questions, y'all have anything that y'all wanna, kind of butt in, you guys are more than welcome to. But yeah, I'm gonna let Sage go ahead and take it over.
Okay, hello. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, let me see. Good job, Tiffany. That was so good. I think my topic will kind of intertwine with her topic very well. So let me pull this up here. Okay, I'm gonna turn my camera off and read this to you guys. Let's see. So what I will be talking about today will be the twin flame versus attachment style versus empath and narcissist, and how those all kind of relate to each other and whatnot. So, first, I want to announce trigger warning because everyone does fall on one side or the other of this. It's definitely a spectrum. So, you will find yourself on one side or the other. So, take a second to give yourself grace and forgive yourself of past actions and reactions to trauma responses. Okay. So, what is the twin flame journey? The twin flame journey is initially two people who are fated to attract each other in order to heal from past trauma. These two people will reflect opposite feminine and masculine wounds to each other. This union is attached to karmic lessons of higher self and the ego. If the couple can balance their feminine and masculine energies in order to create a safe emotional space, the relationship can ascend further. The twin flame relationship can become karmic or a soulmate connection due to free will and depending on the individual's awareness to their own wounds being mirrored. These wounds are directly derived from what we refer to as mommy and daddy issues. What is an attachment style? Attachment styles are specific patterns of behaviors in relationships, derived from the relationship one has with their mother or their father figures, reflecting the relationship we have with ourselves. Therefore, there are four different types of attachment styles. We have secure attachment styles, anxious attachment, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant. Firstly, a secure attachment style is being able to empathize with others. They have a high self esteem, self respect, can manage long term relationships, have no problem being alone, setting boundaries with self or others when necessary. They will practice developing a strong emotional vocabulary and assertiveness skills. When someone has an anxious attachment with others, that person is more than likely, excuse me, if let me see here. When someone has an anxious attachment with others, that person's more than likely to be anxiously avoidant to themselves. If that person is avoidant with others, the relationship to self may result to being anxiously attached. Both reflect self-protection from their abandonment and rejection wounds. When someone is anxiously attached, someone with an anxious attachment style felt abandoned and insecure in childhood. They struggle with clinging on too strongly in relationships if they sense abandonment. They tend to not trust their intuition due to mixed emotions. This will manifest as feeling unworthy of love or dismissive to own emotions in favor to their partner's feelings. To have a secure attachment, this person must learn to be alone over being involved in toxic relationships. They will learn to speak up for themselves and place boundaries as needed through self-worth. On the contrary, an avoidant person felt rejected in childhood. This person may end relationships too soon if they sense rejection. This person's uncomfortable with their own emotions, therefore they will interact on a surface level and is usually unaware of their own emotions. In order for an avoidant person to become secure, they will need to develop emotional management and identify what are their true feelings, thoughts, needs, and wants in a relationship. To compare, in comparison to the twin flame journey, the runner is usually dismissive or fearfully avoidant, and the chaser resulting to be anxiously attached. From personal studies, I found that the chaser is reflecting a wounded feminine energy and overly masculine energy. And the runner is wounded masculine, reflecting an overly feminine energy to the chaser here. In order for the chaser and runner cycle to stop, the chaser must stop chasing the avoidant and work on self love and personal milestones. As the runner will stop as the runner will stop running from their emotions and self-sabotaging the relationship. All right. So, and now we're going to go into what is the empath and narcissist relationship. An empath is a person with the ability to comprehend the mental or emotional state of another individual, while a narcissist is someone who disregards the mental emotional state of others and actions reflect how they feel internally. Empaths struggle with taking on other people's problems as their own, setting boundaries, being alone, saying no, putting their putting their emotions above others. When in a relationship with a narcissist, they tend to walk on eggshells, have memory loss, post-traumatic stress, and tend to have loss of self-worth and self-esteem. On the other hand, a narcissist struggles with empathy of others, respecting boundaries, repressing and projecting insecurities onto others. This person may cheat, tends to overly criticize, uses the silent treatment as an advantage, and will lie to cover up actions to uphold the relationship. All right. So the chaser, anxious person, and the empath must learn to give love, learn to give the love they seek to themselves first to attract secure people in order to heal their abandonment wound. They must learn they do not need anything or anyone outside of themselves to feel emotionally secure and loved. To heal anxiety, one must find passion to be cheerful. On the other hand, the runner, avoidant person, and narcissist must learn to be open to their own emotions and others in order to heal rejection wounds. They must learn the cause and effect in their own actions. And to heal rejection, one must learn to be fearful in order to be confident. I believe these relationships last so long due to soul ties and sexual exchange, keeping them bounded to each other. They both need each other, but reflect the wounds that trigger each other, being why self awareness is so important. Both parties must forgive their childhood wounds of not feeling loved and begin to love themselves how they needed to be loved as a child for this dynamic to change. Self compassion for past and own actions is the key to unconditional love and self forgiveness. And that is all I have for you guys. So if you guys have any questions, feel free. Okay, let me check the chat here.
I got a question personally. So this could be a question for, honestly for both of y'all. Um, so as far as because y'all gave a lot of information, a lot of source, and I like to personalize it. Like I like to see, okay, based off the information that y'all have and y'all know, what in what ways have you been able to see how it's been able to benefit your own personal life or situations of yourself. Like I like how Tiffany gave, that example of her situation and how she had to shape up and kind of get back into it herself. And she even noticed all the things that ended up happening that were detrimental for herself inside of the relationship. And then she ended up figuring out all the things that were beneficial after she left. So I wanted to ask, for both of y'all, but maybe even more so for Sage, like, what are some things that you had to realize for yourself when it came to relationships or just like partners that were a flaw for you and the people you were attracting, and how were you able to notice that, and what have you been doing now up to date to keep yourself on track, making sure that you are the right person for the you are the right person for the right partner.
Okay, so from personal experience, um, I would have struggled with a anxious attachment style. So naturally, I attract narcissists and people who have avoidant attachment styles. I would say this is because I probably felt like my mom wasn't very receptive to my emotions, and my father was emotionally avoidant. So, because of that dynamic, I looked for that same cycle from what's a familiar when I was a child. So, I would say for me to stop having this anxious attachment dynamic, I had to go within and figure out what type of attachment style do I have with myself. So now I just make sure that I'm continuing to listen to my emotions and uphold the boundaries that I placed. So that's kind of how I would say it relates in my own life.
Bet. I appreciate that.
Let me see. And I can share my notes and whatnot as well. Um, how do mom and dad issues specifically affect someone in a relationship? Okay, that's a good question. Um, Let me think. So I would say, so if you have mommy issues, actually, can I share my screen and pull up this chart here? I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, you just have to click the green share button at the bottom.
Okay, let me see here.
Um, while she does that, for like on my experience, I am a avoidant, more fearful. So like I would close off myself to people before they could reject me in a sense. And that hyper independence, I noticed like it wasn't really healthy for me. And even like just not sharing things with people, not sharing how I feel or my mind, because I just naturally had the assumption that they wouldn't care. So it's just like, let me just be to myself. Even like with the whole betrayal issues and all that. But um, what I do work on is just like seeing the flaws within myself. So like actually the other day I realized I was thinking about my past and how I relate to people. So I have Scorpio in my seventh house. If anybody's like knows about astrology, I have my Mars there. So like I see how I could be dominant over people, and like I always like power games. Like let's say like I'm thinking about my childhood, so like I like tag or hide and seek, like things that basically are power games. So I'm now seeing how I could have probably dominated over people unconsciously. So like yeah. But yeah, I try to see myself from a perspective and see my flaws. I'm stubborn, things like that. So really working on that and really just focusing on me and elevating me. So like whatever it takes, like I have a list right here on things that give me energy and then things that align myself with my body, my soul, my spirit every day. And that's really what I focus on along with my goals. But yeah.
That's good. I really like that. Okay, so real quick. So this is the chart. Can you guys see it? This is the chart I have here. And I like this chart because it shows like not only like the yin and yang of energy, but it kind of shows that you have to have a balance of both feminine and masculine energy. So if we start on the top, a healthy feminine energy is someone who's open, patient, caring, wise, flexible, compassionate. And this is like a very receptive energy, open to receive. And this person also has this secure masculine energy, which allows them to be structured and focused. So, in order to be a healthy feminine, you have to have both aspects. And then a healthy masculine energy would be focused, disciplined, active, has purpose, has a vision. And the feminine energy that balances this masculine would be, let's see, soften it and deepens it a bit and makes it wiser. So being wise, being open and receptive, but still being in their masculine power. So if you scroll down, an unhealthy feminine energy Is someone who is stagnant, maybe doesn't have much direction, but this person can be perceived as lazy, unfocused, depressed, over nurturing, unmotivated. And then the masculine energy here would be unhealed masculine would be aggressive, narrow minded, cold, frustrated, and the unhealed feminine energy. Oh, yes, here, destructive. So a masculine with unhealed feminine energy is destructive, which makes sense because feminine energy um, nurtures and provides in a way that emotional stability. So this is kind of really good chart I always go back to when I think about unhealed mommy and daddy issues. So yes.
I have another question. So, and maybe if you want to keep the chart just shared,
Oh yeah,
just
of course.
people can still look at it while I ask this question. But do you believe that any in any sort, yes or no, and why, that a masculine, feminine woman, I'm sorry, a woman that is in her masculine, more shaded into her masculine, and a man that is more shaded into his feminine, is there any possible way that could work out in a relationship, in your opinion?
Um, I would believe yes if they're okay with not if they because the only reason why they wouldn't work out is if they're focused on gender roles, I would say. But if a masculine who is in his feminine energy, well, that's a good question. I'm gonna let Tiffany answer first. What do you think? That's a really good question.
I think if ego is involved, then no, because like they're gonna like I don't know. I just feel like both sides. It's just not gonna work if ego is involved. So let's say if a masculine sees that the feminine is um taking charge or is the breadwinner and stuff like that, there could be like a little like and then especially like if other people come around. But if they're out of their ego and they're coming from a place where they're okay with who they are and what energy they embody, then I mean, yeah. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm very like tradition oriented, so it's like I don't think longevity wise, in my opinion, no, but maybe for like a while. But that's just because of like my tradition mindset and like yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that is a really great question. I would say maybe it depends on going back to that attachment style, what type of attachment styles they have. Because because ideally you would want to have a healthy feminine and masculine energy within yourself. So if this masculine kind of leads more on being a feminine masculine, and then vice versa for this woman, I feel like as long as they're okay with the gender roles not getting away in the relationship, it could work out. So,
But also, I didn't get to see like what other question I had before it cut out. So I don't know if anybody wants to repeat like a question in regards to the sex and energy exchange.
I actually wanted to, I'm on a roll right now, so I actually wanted to expand on that just a step further, because I understand y'all perspective. The only place to meet, like in my personal opinion, to where that gets to the point where it's like it could work, on a logical base, and if there is no ego involved, but at the same time, then I look at it like, okay, if you having a family, how is it possible that a feminine man or a man that's more predicated into his feminine side can raise a boy into a masculine man? Ultimately, I just see that same thing transcending down, duplicating. And so that's where it comes into like, okay, are the boys now being raised correctly or being raised to protect or even being raised with the right mindset, the mindset to actually want to be a leader or to want to actually provide and protect for a woman, I guess you could say, in a traditional manner. um and if that relationship starts off that way and that's the foundation of it, that's the core of the relationship, that's definitely what will trickle down into the generation and into the lineage. So that's why I always, ask that, and just to want to see everybody's opinion on, just those factors involved in the relationship.
So what I want to add too is I've noticed this, and I was also like this growing up. When you have, like, say you have a kid, right? Say you start a family and the woman is in her masculine and the man is in his feminine, right? As a boy growing up, I did not respect my mom's masculine energy nearly as much as I respected my dad's. That plays a huge that plays a huge role. That plays a huge role in the making of a man. So ultimately, like, this is what they've been doing for centuries now. Like, y'all got to read the Willie Lynch letter. The construction of feminine men and masculine women has been something they've been doing for centuries now. And right now, we're really seeing the effects of it. Like, I'm noticing that this is really becoming a topic of conversation. And masculine women and a feminine man, ultimately, it can work out, but they're gonna butt heads because even though they come to the agreement that we aren't in our natural polarities, but we can make it work, you're still not in your natural polarities. Feel me? You're still not in your natural polarity, so you're gonna butt heads because he's a man. At the end of the day, he might be a feminine man, but he's still a man. And when he feels his masculinity threatened, what happens with masculinity? It's always gonna invoke that competition. It's always gonna invoke competitive energy. So both parties have to be at a very high level of understanding and a very high level of patience that a lot of people just do not have for this to work long term. That's why I think it has to be, y'all can accept it now, but y'all better have some blueprints to how we gonna flip this shit the right way. And also just understand, that's why you gotta have the level of understanding too, is some men are born with a lot of water energy, a lot of feminine energy, or what's considered feminine energy, because when you really get down to it, non-duality, et cetera, et cetera. But let's just stay here, right? Let's just stay feminine and masculine, right? Even though everything just is, let's just stay feminine and masculine. There's a lot of men, there's a couple of men who have a lot of water energy. There might be a lot of Cancer and Pisces. The world is going to consider that more feminine. Now, ultimately, he can do something to reverse that, to change himself, to develop more masculinity and reality. But at the end of the day, the energy that comes natural to him is going to be considered feminine. So that's when the woman has to understand that about him. And if she can't understand that, then the relationship will never work. You feel what I'm saying? And I feel like that goes into what'd you call it? Like a feminine, masculine man, CJ. You said something like that. But or I don't know how to describe it, but it's just being understanding. That's really all it ever comes down to, is being understanding of the other person's energy.
Definitely makes sense. Definitely makes sense. It's interesting to see how, like Sage said, like, seeing that growing up, in different households, like as a female, you don't see the effects of it, but as men, we do. And it's like that's those are the things I look at and I notice, because it's like, I don't know. I just feel like, I grew up in a traditional household, I would say. My dad was probably more hyper masculine than I would say like divine masculine. But, even a hyper masculine man, just seeing how he has the hustle, the strictness, the straightforwardness, the trying to always tell me, stay on my P's and Q's in a way so that way I can actually get what I need out of life. If I were to hear my mom say those things, like Derek said, I wouldn't have respected it as much. I would have kind of like listened, but at the same time, I don't fear my mom as much as I, fear my dad, um, growing up. And even fear, that might not even be the right way to raise your children, but let's just be honest, that's how a lot of us were raised, out of fear, through discipline, through our parents. But just having that right masculine figure, it it definitely shaped me a little bit more to understand like how I should be growing up or how I should be, in a relationship. And so I just find that interesting. If I was to see like I don't know, like I just put a scenario in my head. Like imagine, what I'm saying, you see like a father trying to tell, his son what to do in the grocery store, and then the father's like, I've had it, honey, go discipline him. Like what? You feel what I'm saying? Like that's that's what I'm saying. Like, just little stuff like that just catches me like off guard. Like how could that actually work? But you know, like Derek said, just gotta understand each other's energy.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
really good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not. What's it called? I was gonna respond to Latavia in the chat, where she said, "I also heard and watched this lady on YouTube that not being in your naturally polarity is bad for your health." Um, Speaking from like the perspective of being a woman, I believe that because I grew up in a household where like the mom was more masculine. So like I took on that a lot. I seen like, oh, you don't need help from nobody. Like I'm a strong woman. I got this. You see, I built this myself. Feel me? And like watch her. Like she doesn't even rest. Like till this day, I just talked to her about that. So like not being able to rest is something that's like like it takes a toll on my body because like I have all these plans in my head. I'm working, I'm thinking I'm working, but I also have to rest so that I can go do the work. Feel me? So like yeah, it leaves you really drained. Is it true? It is true. I want to explain the physics. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so for women, so what being too much in your masculine energy does to y'all, what being too much in the energy of let me get out and go get it, let me work, let me you're putting a huge amount of stress onto your body, right? And y'all bodies are not built like a man's bodies. So men, because we're in the masculine energy, we exert a lot more testosterone. Y'all exert a lot more estrogen. So our testosterone can handle the stress and the cortisol that's released when we're stressing ourselves out. Actually, testosterone wants to be stressed out. That's what comes with masculinity. But with women, y'all get a lot more tired behind it, depending on who you are. But normally, I ain't gonna lie, actually. I ain't gonna lie, actually. I think my man's was showing me a Fresh and Fit podcast. And I heard this is where I heard it from. And it does make sense because they brought up the army with it. And I was in the army. And a lot of women end up dropping out of the army. Their hips end up getting fractured because they literally cannot take the stress and the amount of work that comes with doing a man's job, like being a soldier. Not saying a woman can't be a soldier. We see it all the time now. But their bodies, their physiological structure literally cannot handle that amount of stress. That's because they're mainly supposed to be building estrogen, producing estrogen, not that amount of stress and testosterone. Whilst for men, estrogen is why you start seeing more men with titties. It's why you start seeing men with guts. It's why you start seeing men who are lazy and don't want to do anything. It's because of buildup of estrogen and just relaxing rather than getting up and going to get it rather than being a man. It's that not having that production of testosterone and an overproduction of estrogen is literally what's making their bodies look like this. And because their bodies look like this, it's making them be more lazy. Feel what I'm saying?
So to add on to this topic one more time, because I feel like it's just interesting. What what and this could be something that even I feel like can be expanded on even into next week. But what is everyone's thoughts? Maybe even Tiffany, Sage, Derek as well, or anybody in the chat. What are y'all thoughts as far as like, just society pushing for, women to be more entrepreneurship based and in these entrepreneurship fields, these leadership roles. And it's not to say that a woman can't lead, but you see a lot of times that it's like a promotion of women to be in that masculine go get it type of mindset. And I'm all for women even having businesses or being an entrepreneur, but how does a woman actually properly go about having that balance of being in her feminine nature, but also aware enough to still be masculine, because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship 90% of the time is, more masculine driven. So, when you're in this type of space, you are in like almost like a competition bubble. And if you're not enough, if you're not in that type of mindset a little bit, you might fall behind on society, or just fall behind on yourself in a way, because you're not actually, staying up to par. So how does, a female go about entrepreneurship, a healthy way? If she wants to be in her feminine nature, but also still wants to be an entrepreneur, how does she go about that healthy in 2023?
Um, I watched this YouTuber. She's called It's Baby J. I'm gonna type it in the chat because I love her videos. So she talks about this a lot, which she says how like essentially it is masculine. Yeah, essentially it is masculine to be an entrepreneur. So in order to balance out your femininity, um, it's good to like nurture your relationships with others when you're networking, or like let's say like you're speaking to somebody, like how you speak with them and things like that, your charisma, your flow. So like, or speaking from your sacral chakra or your heart chakra, your feminine chakras, uh even going about like following the cycles of the moon or your menstrual cycle to like move about business deals, things like that. It will be beneficial for us. And really that prioritizing time to rest and like having those days where you're nurturing and tending to yourself is also very important, so you're not just in the work mode. You got to have that flow and ebb and flow.
Yeah, I agree with what she just said. But one thing I'll say is like, I think everything she just said is really facts. And also in this world, there's not really like you have to be in your masculine energy. Like you have to get out and go get it for yourself. You have to be able to do for yourself in this world. So like there's really no work around it. And as far as like doing it in a healthy way, like it's gonna take a toll on a woman's body. Maybe some more than others, depending on how much that woman maintains herself and keeps up with her health. But I think I think regardless, there's not really that big of a healthy way, from what I've seen at least. There's not that much of a healthy way to do both at the same time without producing a lot of being overly in your masculine. So knowing when to take those rests, like Tiffany just said, and trying to get yourself into a flow, knowing when you need to nurture yourself, things of that nature, knowing when to nurture your own energy. Because entrepreneurship is very masculine. The way you have to become financially free, to seek freedom, to attain freedom, is a lot of masculine energy that needs to be produced.
But just to even add on with that, it helps like let's say a woman in there, like when they have their feminine energy and you find like somebody who could pour into your business so you don't have to work as hard, like using your charm and your feminine what's that word that they used to do, like the seducing, to help find somebody who can invest in your business and things like that.
That sound like tricking.
It is what it is. You all gotta survive. But I mean, it's how you go about it.
Nah, I was really gonna like, I actually wanted to, um I actually was gonna say too as well, even just on a masculine base, like, a lot of times, we could be in a very like, all right, gotta go get it type of mindset. And I actually made a video recently about this, where it's just like, that's like a hustler's mindset to me. And when a hustler's mindset, when I hear hustler, I hear somebody that's looking to survive. You know what I'm saying? I hear somebody that's surviving through their circumstances. And when you're operating out of survival, you're technically operating out of lack, because you're operating out of, I don't have it right now. So you're the way you go about things. A lot of times, if you see like people who do hustle, 9 times out of 10, they're they're okay with doing something that will get over on somebody. They're okay with putting somebody down if it's gonna bring them up, or they're okay with backdooring somebody, or they're okay with doing little stuff like that. Now, there's obviously different ways you could context that word hustle, but instead of having that hustler's mindset or that always masculine mindset, you could kind of have a healer mindset. And that's how I think of it, you know, just like where you're healing the planet, you're putting that hustle into actually building the planet or building your community. You're healing the things that are actually broken, or you're putting the pieces back together of the puzzle that's been reorganized. And that type of mindset, that flow of life, it brings about more, not only peace, mental peace and clarity. So now you can actually enjoy the journey, because ultimately I personally feel that we all are here just for a journey. And it's not even about accomplishing on this journey. It's actually about understanding the concept of enjoying it and enjoying the little things of the journey that actually amplifies you to where you want to be in your imaginative state of, this is my imaginative state of like where when I have all my wealth, when I have X, Y, and Z. Like I don't know if you guys ever seen, you know, Avengers, but Tony Stark, he always had the vision of like being the smartest man that conquered the world and was able to complete everything and was able to protect everybody with his intelligence and his advanced knowledge and use artificial intelligence. And then it came to a point where the people even felt like they felt like he was going to the extreme. He was trying to make the human AI of Jarvis, like he was trying to do too much to them. And they was like, nah, bro, stop. You can't start a war. You can't try to finish a war before a war starts. That doesn't make sense. And he still ended up doing it anyways. And what ended up happening was they all ended up dying. They lost their friends. They lost their peoples. But when everything came back and they was able to fight the last one, it wasn't even really about him winning or him about, you know, him completing the fight or everything. It was more of his understanding of himself after everything. If you notice, he wasn't feeling like ego based. He was more like, I did my part. I did what I was supposed to do. I'm ready to go. And he kind of gave up Iron Man at that point. And so it was more about him understanding the journey. That's why he had the most hardships all the time. And I relate him to being like a chosen one, you know, especially him out of all of them because of his journey. He didn't have anything. He didn't have no strength. He just had intelligence, but his intelligence was used in an artificial way, you know. So that's just kind of like how I relate that, you know, in a masculine way. It's like instead of always trying to be a hustler, you know, look to be a healer. You know, look to see how you can heal the people with your masculine energy, and you know that brings upon that balance of letting things come to you, working smarter, but also putting in that work, you know what I'm saying? Putting in that work to help out the planet as well.
I like that a lot. I think using superheroes, you can definitely like say like if you look at Spider-Man, like all the heroes are definitely in their masculine energy, but you can definitely say like you how you use your superpowers can be feminine or masculine. Like if you look at Spider-Man, maybe he'd be more of like a feminine type superhero because of how his character is made, and he's a little more, I don't know. But he's definitely in his masculine power because he's actively saving and healing people. So that's a really good example. I like that a lot.
You know what's actually interesting? When you said hustler, like it brought me to a realization that I made the other day. Like growing up, I was just thinking of like these two songs because I'm thinking of like who made me, who was my influence growing up, and I'm thinking of right now Beyonce and Rihanna. I was like 8 years old. I'd be in the living room watching music videos, and like she literally has a song Diva where she's like, Diva is a female version of a hustler, of a hustler. So it's like it's programming little girls watching this, or like Rihanna, I go hard, yeah, 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 I go hard. Like I don't know if this was propaganda from then, but I noticed that and I'm like, okay, like this is stuff that had an impact on me growing up, and it's like sending out the message to be in a masculine energy.
And like just to add on to that, like even if you notice, like um songs where girls are a little bit more feminine in the songs and stuff like that, like they don't even get as much notoriety. You know what I'm saying? It's not as cool, or you know what I'm saying? It's not as like, oh, you don't see that. You don't see like, yeah, like I'm proud to be feminine. As you know, as much as now, like you see it more trying to come out now. But like growing up, we didn't see that. It was always just we got the bag, we doing it on our own, and you know, it's a choice if we need a guy or not. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't need a guy. You know what I'm saying? So it breeded that hustle mentality out of women, like you saying. You know.
I have a question for you guys to like piggyback on. So two questions. Do you guys think a woman can be the strongest version of herself, the strongest woman, if she's not operating in her feminine energy? So like if she's operating from her masculine energy, but she has a healed feminine, and then the other part of the question, do you guys think that as a man, you can operate in your feminine energy and have a healed masculine? Or do you think operating in your feminine means that your masculine is unhealed? So do you think you guys can have like both healed and operate from the side that's not natural? Or operating from the side that's not natural means the opposing side is unhealed? So I've been listening to the conversation. I'm kind of on the fence about this one. So let me know.
I kind of want to, like give my own personal answer for that, if you don't mind. As far as like being a man and, being in your feminine, does that mean that your masculine energy is unhealed? I would definitely say yes, but not only unhealed, I will also say underdeveloped, because like in my personal experience, I grew up mainly like getting attention from my female family members, you know what I mean? So I definitely was more in touch with like my feminine side, and I didn't even realize it until I got into a relationship and I started to realize like, some of the thought processes that I had and things like that, you know what I mean? So I would say for sure, like it would definitely mean that your masculine energy or masculine side is unhealed, but definitely also undeveloped, because you can always develop it. And my personal answer for the other question, do you think like a woman can be her best self or at her strongest if she's operating out of her masculine energy? I would say personally, that would depend on what your perspective of being strong is, or being your strongest. Because like physically, if she's operating out of her, masculine energy, maybe she could be the strongest she could be physically, but maybe not so mentally or emotionally. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was just my answer for that.
I would say the exact same thing, because this whole conversation is in alignment. Gotta love to see it, man. Because this whole, like for me, I'll use me as a perfect example, bro. Like me and my content, that has been me. I've been operating out of my feminine energy the entire time, and I didn't even notice. Especially since I've had women tell me that, like, yeah, nah, you're masculine. Da, 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 da. I'm like, if a woman says it, it must be true. But now I'm looking at it, and it's like now I've had some reflection. Now I'm getting more insight. Planets going to retrograde. I'm seeing it now. Like, no, I have been operating out of my feminine this whole time. I'm starting to do more digging into my past, how I was raised. I was around women the whole time. I asked my mom earlier, what was life like when I was 3 and 5? And you know what I'm saying? I already kind of expected the answer. She said I was clingy. She said I was always around her. She said she used to take me to the dance studio all the time. And I remember that. And that triggered a thought of me like, bro, just that being in that environment alone, always being around women, but never around my dad that much. Not that I couldn't. Feel me? He was in the house. I just wasn't around him that much. I was never around other men. My brother, he was here and there, but my brother is gay. Feel me? So I've been operating out of my feminine this entire time. And people can see like, oh yeah, this man, he's smart, he's intellectual, he's got a divine mind, he's tapped in. Da, 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 da. But I haven't even tapped into my masculinity as much as I really could have. So y'all have only seen the potential of what my full strength could be. Not at all full power. Feel me? Not at all my full power. And it's because I've been operating with an underdeveloped masculine energy and an overdeveloped feminine energy. So I think if that's the case for a man, then because men and women are equal opposites, then it's going to be the same for a woman. Because she can produce in reality, like if she can run up 10 M's all on her own, but still isn't a good nurturer, still doesn't know how to show compassion, still isn't connected to divine like that, still doesn't take good care of herself, still isn't compassionate really, then she isn't really at her full strength. The same way, if a man, he might be as connected to spirit, as wise as he could be, very compassionate, very emotionally understanding, et cetera, but he doesn't have the discipline, he doesn't have the drive to get up and go chase his purpose, then feel me, he's not as strong as he truly could be.
And I really feel like deep down to a core, you really don't know until you had the conversations with these individuals. But I feel like deep down to a core, let's say if a woman is in her masculine, she does run up those 10 M's, and she does, get that lifestyle that she was always looking for. I truly feel like, she wouldn't even be able to attract the men that she really wanted to until she learned how to actually be feminine, or till she learned how to actually maximize her potential and actually, balance her feminine energy with that masculine energy. And that's just the bottom line. Like, if you really think about it, like, a man doesn't, only a man that, and this is in my personal opinion, like, only a man that's too much in his feminine or hasn't maxed out his masculine energy is going to look at a female that has a lot of wealth and be like, yo, I want her because she's wealthy. Like, I feel like I've never thought like that. I've never felt like that, because if she could have it, and that's cool, but I don't want a woman just because she's wealthy. I want a woman more so because she has those feminine qualities. She don't even have to have anything that has to do with wealth. And because she has those feminine qualities, I would still want to give her more attention than the one that has all the wealth but no feminine qualities with her.
And hey CJ, I wanted to piggyback off of what you just said. So like, as far, if you really want to like look at back at it, as far as like traditional roles, even before like, American times, like as far as our modern day, 60s traditional, but even further back than that, it's like, if you really look at it from even a scientific point of view, we're built the way we're built for a reason. You know what I mean? So if you really were to think about it, men are obviously, more muscular and whatnot because we're meant to protect our women, but we're also meant to provide. You know what I mean? And women are built the way they're built because, for one, they're obviously, naturally nurturing, and they're supposed to be, like mothers and things like that. But I feel like another problem with people today is, instead of looking at what a person is for who they are, people look at what they can do. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like that, the reason I feel like that kind of revolves around the masculine and feminine thing is because I personally feel like a man is supposed to provide for the woman that he loves, you know what I mean? And for his family. So if you're a man and you're looking at a woman only because of what she can provide, I feel like that means that you're operating in your feminine energy more so, but not necessarily in like a negative way, like how, because there are women who, might look at a man for what he can provide, but that's not always a bad thing. It's only if you do that solely for that purpose. So I'm saying, like, men who do that solely for that purpose, look at a woman for what she can give to him. It's almost like a leech or like a parasite. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And as far as for like women, you know what I mean? I feel like you shouldn't just look at a man for what he can provide. But I do definitely feel like women should look at a man for what he can provide, because that's, obviously, if you, like I said, if you look at like how we're built and the things that we can each do for each other as a man and a woman, you should, as a woman, look at what a man can do for you, but that shouldn't be the sole purpose.
But if you say it like that, it should also be, a man should look at what a woman can do for you too.
I don't necessarily
like not in a sense like, what can you do for me, like spiritually? Like women, I feel like we can cater to our man, we can protect our man in like the spiritual realm, but like also like your man more protects you on the physical. So it is kind of a joint partnership of what can you do for me, but what can we exchange? Like, how can you pour into my cup when I'm pouring into yours?
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I think the type of what a man should look for in a woman is, can she take care of herself? If she takes care of herself, can she take care of me? Can she take care of my kids? Because what a woman's supposed to do is multiply. So can she multiply the behavior she has on herself? onto me, and you know, like if they choose to start a family and whatnot. So yeah, I definitely think everything should be not is the equality between a man and a woman is you're not really looking for the same qualities, definitely. So I agree with that. Oh, going back off of what Derek said. So I know for myself, I used to have a, well, working from anxious to a secure attachment style. So that means that I'm overly developed in my feminine qualities. So in relationship, this looks like I overly mother. And just for background reference, I have a Cancer moon. So when I used to operate from my moon sign, I would overly mother people. I would give out so much love. I would do all these things. So that might look like to some people that I operate from my feminine energy, but it was actually a wounded masculine because I was doing all the things to other people and wasn't providing it back to myself. So what I've learned from operating from wounded masculine energy is that I would overly work so hard that I was literally pushing my abundance away from me. So the more I worked hard, the more I kept chasing all these things, it kind of pushed my blessings away. And the more I realized that if I stop chasing, I just attract things to me. Um, the universe blesses me more abundantly if I'm in my feminine energy. So that's kind of my background and just what I have to say about being in feminine or masculine energy.
Yeah, and even like I feel like I operated off wounded masculine energy. And what did you say? Did you say that was? But I don't think I was overly feminine though. Like that's the thing. Like sometimes I get confused trying to pinpoint what's what. But I do notice that like I do feel like that's why the dot is there for the yin and yang. Like each thing needs to be within each of us. Cause like for both ends, yes, it's important. Like I think I seen somebody say a 80-20 rule. So like if you're a masculine operating 80% masculine and then have that 20% feminine, and then if you're a feminine, that 80% feminine and 20% masculine. Cause like let's say where I was in that like work go getter mode, I noticed that, or for both ends, I think it's important to have like feminine energy because that's what attracts and brings things to you. And having that rest, I mean, rest is essential for all of our health, and like being able to surrender to God's spirit, not just like things outside of you, in front of you. But it was very essential for me to start tapping into my feminine energy, and I feel happier. Like I can actually say that like my vibration increased because of that. Like I feel better as I tap into my feminine more and more. So I wasn't at my fullest potential when I was like obviously operating my masculine. And then with Derek, it's interesting that you say that you were in your feminine and you made like when you were making your TikToks, because it's like, okay, like I said, the feminine attracts. Like look how much you attracted from yourself from that. So I mean, I don't know like your own personal side of like the whole structure aspect of things, where it's like with me, I feel like I don't have a developed healthy masculine. So like I can have the ideas and like what I want to do and how I want to talk and all that, but that discipline and like getting up and go, like stop letting my distractions win and stuff like that, like I could really work on having a healthier masculine as well.
I always say this, and I think I'm gonna continue saying this, but from my own experience, the best way, because we can't really sit and blame our parents forever for not mothering us the best way or protecting us the way we should have been when we were kids. So I would say for us to take accountability of our whether we're masculine or femininely held, to heal your masculine, I think the best way to do is through God, because he's literally the best example of a masculine figure, right? So, and then the best example of a feminine image would be Mother Gaia, would be healing through the earth. So, if you can balance your relationship with God and your relationship with the earth, I think that would create balance in those energies.
Nah, yeah, definitely appreciate the Appreciate the advice. Appreciate the sauce, Tiffany, Sage. I appreciate everything that you guys just put together for everybody. Appreciate everybody else that also was able to chime in and give some value. If anybody else has a question, feel free to mute yourself before we end off. But I definitely appreciate everybody for taking the time. If you guys got some sauce, you guys got some value, and you guys got some wisdom and understanding, well, I would say knowledge, and that knowledge is going to cultivate to some understanding. Drop a 111 in the chat for the knowledge if y'all got some knowledge today. Can't touch on how to develop empathy. Sage or Tiffany, I don't know if you want to dive into that, how to develop empathy.
I would say observing other people and to cater and have. So I think the best way to have empathy is to learn to have empathy for yourself and to slow down and be like, okay, what's happened to me in my life? And why was this not fair? Why did I deserve better? And to like begin to the process of like forgiving those people, because like how can you have empathy for something outside of you if you're not feeling that way to yourself? And the relationship of not having empathy for other people is not putting yourself first and feeling that for yourself anyways. So I would say just to begin going through your past and being like, okay, I wasn't treated fair. I needed like self compassion is the way to self forgiveness and unconditional love. So just starting to like really say where you deserved better at would create that relationship.
Yeah, and even to piggyback off that, like, I agree with what she said on observing people and just like the ability to place yourself in their shoes when they're like explaining something to you. So, um, like with the whole like basically the compassion, so opening up your heart chakra more and how you relate to others. So the sacral, so like working through stuff within the sacral and heart chakra to see like if that something's blocking you from being able to connect or relate to somebody. You relate, see how they feel. But yeah, the ability to really like be in that other person's shoes. So like if they're experiencing something, how would that make you feel? You know? But yeah.
I think a lack of empathy. I really agree with what Sage said because everything starts with self. So what is empathy to begin with? It's feeling what other people feel. It's understanding what other people are going through. So if you can't have empathy towards others, that means you have a lack of understanding for what you've been through, and you have a lack of compassion for what you've been through. Feel me? So I feel like it starts with just genuine introspection on what you've been through in life. What is it that you've been running from? Where have I been judging myself? Where have I not accepted myself? Like that ass, grab a pen, get a notebook, and just ask these questions because questions unlock the mind. It's a quest, literally quest, question, quest. So questions are literally a quest for the mind. So ask yourself these questions. Where am I not accepting myself? Right? Where am I judging myself? What have I ran from? You know, what shadow work have I been purposely neglecting? All starts with self. It all starts with the introspection. You can't have empathy for others if you don't have sympathy for yourself. You can't have empathy for others if you don't have sympathy for your inner child, because that's really where it all stems from.
I would definitely say going back to those attachment styles, figuring out how the attachment style you give in other people's relationships, and then figuring out the type of attachment style you have with yourself. So yeah, definitely healing within. I think that's a really big one because then you'll figure out how you're being projected and who projected that onto you. So
That's a bet. That's a bet. Glad the questions got answered. Like I said, if y'all got some value, definitely spam up the ones in the chat. Appreciate you guys for taking the time. Make sure you definitely go ahead and connect with Sage, connect with Tiffany on their social platforms. If you guys want to drop your social platforms again, and even when I drop the recording, I'll be putting you guys' social platforms in the description. So you guys are, definitely going to be able to check that out. Make sure you guys are following the Militant Breadwinners page so that you guys can go ahead and catch the sauce. Make sure you guys definitely go ahead and follow, Sage, follow Tiffany on their platforms, and just show some love. Show some love in the Discord, show some love online. Make sure that you're spreading the information and knowledge. If you know somebody could benefit off this, definitely go ahead and share it with them, because ultimately we're helping each other grow when each of us teach another person. So don't just get this information and just apply it only for yourself. Each one teach one. Next time on the call, bring somebody else. So instead of you having to teach them, we are helping to teach each other all at once. So with that being said, I hope everybody definitely takes care of themselves, because the more y'all take care of yourselves, y'all taking care of me, because we are one. And with that being said, I'm gonna see you guys from the top or at the top. The only time we ever look down is to bring you guys up. If you guys are looking for us, you can find us at the beach or you can find us at the bank. Let's get it.